Hi everybody, my name is Jessica Holyfield. I'm a professional dancer, professional dance choreographer, and dance educator based out of the southeast of the United States. And we're going to be taking a look at some excerpts from the final episode of the first season of Street Dance Girl Fighter. This is going to encompass round 1. And I will say the audio on round 1 footage is a bit sensitive. I did recently get a new webcam for when I do full episode reactions, and I was testing out kind of the audio side of it, and bless it, it was not really feeling how loud I can get. So do forgive me if some of my sound on those analysis sound a bit wild and out of pocket. That's why. If you also notice that maybe some of my feedback seems a bit out of context or a little bit different or strange, that could be because I am tailoring it to some other aspects that I found within the episode. I do try to tailor and tie things all back together, and sometimes that doesn't happen. So I apologize if I say something that may seem a bit confusing. Hopefully I'll be able to clarify that in the discussions that will hopefully follow. So without further ado, let's go ahead and check it out. I'm excited to see this.
You already know. 나의 무기한 상쾌한 패시 그 뒤에 패기는 승리 난 나답지 땀이 말해주지 보이는 그대로
Interesting choice for them to have it wasn't symmetrical there, but then they made it symmetrical. I think that's my one note, is we're not quite, the symmetry is not, it's not as efficient as it could be. I love this though. Oh, wow. Yeah. Wow, okay. Interesting. That's a really fun BPM change. Nice, but here's that freaking ending again, guys. I mean, I see this little connection of people holding on to each other as they look like a mountain of humans. I like it every time, but I feel like we can never escape it in any competitive environment. In the Korean Street series, we will find this in some way, shape, or form, in K-pop or in this. Am I a fan though? Yes, of course. I really liked this. This was fun. Going from the top of this here, let me see if I can get it close. I like this. This was really fun. They should probably score well, both groups. The beginning of this, my one note with both of the groups here is I feel like they didn't really talk about their costumes as much because they're so distinctly different. That's not my qualm. My qualm is the fact that there's such different colors that whenever you have them in certain formations, it's very obvious it's very heavy with a particular group over another versus having symmetry, because you have a group of 5, which is turns, and then 4, 5, 6, 7. So it does make an even number, so it does get a little tricky. Because you have a group of 5 and then a group of 7, and so that equals what? 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 10? No? No. 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. You have 12 that you're operating out of, right? So it's still really fun to see. Very much like this. But I think that's just my one note, is that we didn't consider the costuming in the symmetry portions of our formation. I think is my big note. I love how she hits it. Great performance and quality, and the bleed over the flower. I really like that dynamic. That was cool. You already know. Bada bada boom. bringing it over here, boom. It is interesting that we chose to hover that position because this is going to read harder to clean than when you actually make contact with your head. So I thought that was interesting that they chose to hover it. I didn't get to see a full frame or a full cam of that either, so there's a chance that, what's the word? There's a chance that it could have been all fine and I would have had no issues with it, but they throw it, boom, boom. We do have a lot of hesitation or a lot of unison transitions. And I think I'm just noticing that from the groups that have more people. Like Brand New Child's really held that. And that was my biggest note for them. And here I do like the performance and presence of this. They do have some nice moments. I love the reveal. They kick around, but just a little bit ago we just noticed, right, they had the just a lot of unison in that section, or a lot of pausing into other syncopations, you know, but I didn't mind it as much. I think it's just that's more of a preference thing than an actual objective thing. This is interesting here because if you look, we have somebody that is technically, if she was there, and I know she transitions there, if she was there, that would have looked way more symmetrical. You know, and we're already kind of struggling with the symmetry anyway, because she transitions there, so I don't know why we didn't, maybe to give her screen time and not be covered up. I understand that, but I'd still just have my note. I like that moment, that was fine. This right here, a really easy fix to this is having my person that's furthest in the back, so not her, but there's somebody right behind her, have her switch with this dancer. That would have made it symmetrical and that would have been giving to me. Also when you notice, and it would have, it's just, yeah, I think those are just my biggest qualms, is I'm really struggling on the symmetry, on the colors, but also there's even moments where there's a group of 3 and a group of 4 and they're supposed to mirror and it's not mirroring. They didn't showcase that there was an injury, so I'm not going to say that that's the case or what's happening, but I do like the lean over and notice that everyone's committed to elevating that knee off the ground. That's great. But my note here though is, if you notice, some people that are up top have their foot up. I feel like that makes sense, but some people have their foot planted, so I guess that would just be a clarification thing on their part, you know. Bleeding it through, that was nice and clean. I enjoyed that. Bada boom, I do like that. That was fun. With the dig, with the transition, I do like the transition from one little rhombusy shape and diving it down into the other side. Little smeeze moment where they get to party, do their own thing. Diving to the back, diving through. Does it feel it's a little bit simpler section? Yeah. Even there, that was nice. And then we transition and travel it in. That would have been, this whole section would have worked wonders if we had a 2-tiered level, because you notice you really don't see turns at all in this section. And I feel like, regardless if you're competition, and I feel like a lot of groups are treating this more collaborative than competitive, and I like that because they're teenagers and let them enjoy collaborating with others, you know, because that's connection building too. Like, it's relational but also connection based, because people from Mismolly are making connections with people with turn, and they are going to, after the show, some are going to join other groups or other crews, and that'll be really helpful to have a connection of, do we work well together? And you would want to work with people that you work well with, right? And so the synergy here, I do like the claps, it's fun, but notice you don't see turns at all here. And no, it's not because of the formation, like, it's not because of the camera, it's strictly like you can't see them. If it's an aerial shot, you would, but you don't want to rely upon an aerial shot to get that certain look across. So this whole section right here, they could have totally done this zoom, 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 drop to their knees. This would have been freaking amazing. That right there, because even turns is drop down. So that's a really wasted opportunity, I think, out of all the formations we've seen here. Also, we're a little off on stage right, which is our left side. Now this was really nice to see. Yeah, yeah. Notice here we had a little drop of levels, and then we all synced it up in the main line. That little pop, pop, pow, really nice. I don't know how we're looking on the sides. That this was nice to see there. Of course, we had a 4 and a 3. We may chalk it up to the fact that we had a 1-point feature with everybody out, and that point picked a side. And so she picked the right side, which is our left. This was a nice moment with one of them featured down. Really great choice because you have a group of 5. It's just sensible. Group of 5, everybody is within a window. Then you have one person featured down. You see everybody. Everyone is showcased, and it's really tasteful. And that's nice. Nah. So honestly, just based on formations and visuals alone, turns should score higher than Mismolly in that regard, but their content too has more dynamics a part of it. It could be because Mama Moo gave them more dynamics, because notice the BPM was strikingly different in the second verse compared to the first verse and first chorus, which is what Mismolly had. But then in the second chorus compared to the second verse, they're two completely different BPMs, two completely different opportunities to showcase content. So that could have helped turns as well. That may have been a subtle disadvantage to Mismolly that they couldn't have controlled. I like that bump. Everybody's kind of the same level, but everyone's making different choices. Now we've established ourselves at different levels. And here we are treating it sensibly. We have an every other happening here. We have a group of 3, and then we have a group of 5 in the back. So it's really nice to see. Personally, I would also give it this choice as well. They could have switched to these 2, and it would have made it much more itemized in our grouping here, or they could have switched these 2 and it would have showed 1, 2, 3 with an outlier on the outside. It would have provided more opportunity of the dynamics of the costume utilization. So there's a good chance they didn't even think about their costumes when they choreographed this, and that would be something that is a great toolkit or a great skill set to factor in. I have a couple of routines in the in the recital season coming about a month from now. I start up recital choreography, which is very exciting. A very different toolkits required for the second semester of studio dance compared to the first. If you didn't know, normally first semester, as just a side note, first semester of studio dance culture tends to be cleaning competition choreography on the side, but also in your regular curriculum classes you focus on technique, refining it, pursuing and challenging and building up the educational side. Then the second semester tends to be we're competing with our competition pieces. We're cleaning, but we're doing changes and auditing based on feedback from judges. And then you also have choreography for recital season, because recital season happens around May to June, sometimes April, sometimes July, but the studios I'm with for the years that I've been with them typically have been May into June, and then I'm Gucci for July. So that lets you know kind of what's going down in my near future with scheduling. It's going to be pretty interesting on the weekends, but fear not, I still got you guys. I very much love doing these analysis on YouTube and for Patreon, and so don't worry. I may be a little bit slower on the upload. It's just a little tidbit, but I still got you, and I'm still going to stay committed to the things that I've committed to do. For sure. Going back to this, I still would feel that if we switched up, I didn't even finish my point. Goodness gracious. My point is I do have a group. They're younger dancers, but I have 3 different colors that are being used for a costume. So for me, I have to make sure that I itemize or I get the right groups right, because even it's going to be visually pleasing if I make sure that I have the right people in the right colors in the right place, because it's going to come across more as more intentional and thoughtful in the choices and presentation of the dancers on stage. So that's just my overall note that really helps whenever you think about the costuming. So going from here, I like this where they bleed it through day and night. Her having her moment, really great, matches the energy well. And she has her moment. Now they start boom, boom, and it was nice to have somebody in the back helping support that. Look, great usage of levels, and then it just goes back to my previous note. I mean, this is a little bit better on the symmetry side. We do have an every other here, boom, boom, and then boom. This doesn't bother me as much, but I think we could have had more improvement in some of these choices. Diving it down, do, and the dig through, it wasn't quite as refined there. That was nice to have that moment. And then we have our 5 with our 6. So I do like that, still having somebody in the back. Yeah, like it's fun. It works really well with the track. So it makes sense why this one was more viral. Could be a mix of overall competition. People are like, oh, it's turns, I want to learn turn stuff because of, the show, and they're doing pretty good. It could be a mix of that, but also the choreography has to be decent too, right? So I like the energy of this presenting over, having your group of 3, and then your group, this is 1, 2, 3, we have a group of 4 and a group of 3, and then having our 5 in the middle. That was nice, it's tasteful, switching, but also no, we have a completely empty window that could have been used, so that would have been my overall note for the transition there. Yeah, bada boom. I really like this. Is great key point choreo given. Bada boom, bada boom, bada boom. Yeah, so that was fun. Do I think that we could have possibly have made, let me look at it again. That's fun. That part's fine. Boom, bada boom, bada boom. Yeah, boom, bada boom, bada boom, bada boom, bada boom. I like the the actual tone of it and how it travels, and I think the choreo looks fine there. It's probably because it's in unison. Once again, every single group did this, which is why I'm assuming that's probably just a really safe bet. They chose to assume they just did it in unison, maybe did a transition here and there, but they didn't add any levels to it because it's focal point choreo, and they wanted to make it easier to replicate for a challenge. Maybe that, but all the groups did it, which is why I think it's interesting. But that would still be my note regardless, because even in group choreography for courses, you still see a lot of variety in execution. I would say Hot by 17 is a great example. You have everybody, you know, they still do the same choreo, but notice that we do have levels represented, even though the challenge is very not one-dimensional, but it's just itemized to one person's interpretation of it, you know. So I feel like we could have made more choices in that regard for all crews across the board, but it doesn't bother me as much here like it did in some of the other groups. This is nice. Oh, chef's kiss. This is what I mean by beauty and symmetry. Like, look at the costuming. Like, this just feels so, it adds an extra level of synchronicity to it, even if they're just standing there. It feels like it's cleaner because they're even thinking through where they're positioning those who have an outlier of a costume. That's why I'm making such a, I don't want to be a stink about it, because I'm not. It's really not a huge deal, but it is a big enough deal for me to mention it multiple times when it comes to the integrity of the formation they're trying to create or the visual. Just putting people in the right place is half the battle, you know? And so, finishing, there we go. Like that zoom, 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 that melting down was really nice. And that boom, 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 boom. I think there was supposed to be a visual there that we were supposed to catch, but I don't know if we quite caught it with this camera angle. With the two right there, and then we go, and then we finish. And I have one of them in the very beginning because she was featured in the beginning. We see her featured at the end, and then seeing them bleed down. I think we had more sense behind our placement of our dancers here near the tail end, because I know we have our two from turns supporting our leader from Mismolly. So all in all, this one probably, with both groups, scored higher. I do know that Mismolly, they got 4th in the socials. Turns got 1st in the socials. Turns will probably score around Noonien. And Mismolly may score around Clue C, potentially, because I do think that turns utilized the dancers more, and we had more wow moments, and the levels were more represented, but both crews experienced, I think, they could have done a much better job of factoring in just the costuming, like the colors of the costumes, to enhance the symmetry of their formations. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you want to check out any more full episode reactions of the Street Fighter series, I have been doing full episodes to both Season 1 and Season 2 of Street Dance Girl Fighter. I also have a ton of content that tailors to Street Woman Fighter and Street Man Fighter, specifically certain challenges that didn't make their way to YouTube. I have all of that in a nice pretty folder called Block Content, so you can go check it out there. I also analyze a wider range of content, including D-League from Japan, which is the professional dance crew league, as well as many different types of K-pop groups, and I have quite a few marathons that are actively happening right now, as well as finished. So if you're somebody who likes to binge a lot of analysis and content, hopefully I have something that could interest you there. But if you're okay with just seeing what comes out on YouTube every day, I'm totally welcoming of that, and I always appreciate discussions on both sides. Once again, I am Jess, and I will catch you on the flip side. Bye.